Hey everyone, in this video I am going to be making this full-size sword full of detail. Just check out the handle, the handguard, and the blade. I'm going to be sharing step by step how I created this sword coming up in today's video. Let's start with the laser machine that I'll be using. I am going to be using this huge 130 watt CO2 laser machine by Monport. It's 55 inches wide by 35 inches deep. I could also scale the graphic down and use any laser machine, like this Monport Reno Pro, or an Xtool S1 laser diode machine, or the Acmer P3 laser system with built-in camera system. The perfect machine is going to be the one that you have. Wood materials for this project can vary quite a bit. I am going to be using a piece of tiger ply. This is 1/4 inch thick, it's high quality, there's no glue voids, and the wood grain pattern is very tight and even on both the front and the back surface, making it a perfect candidate for both engraving and cutting. For gluing, I prefer an instant type gel glue such as Gorilla Glue. I've also got the option of just regular old wood glue. When we look at the wood finishes, there's a ton of options here. For this practice setup piece, I use some Danish oil. This is one step. It's going to stain and seal and protect all with one application. I also wanted the wood grain to pop just a little bit more, so I applied a little bit of boiled linseed oil over the top. And I've also got the option of some sanding sealer. This is going to fill in all the pores of the wood, giving it a nice uniform finish. That way I can get a nice even coat of some spray paint, whether it's an enamel based or this iron lac that is acrylic. That's really tough stuff and it dries very quickly. And it also lends itself to some brush-on paints as well. On the practice piece, all I did was remove all of the hard edges around all of the cutout shapes. For the one that I'm building in this video, I'm going to be using a variety of different tools and sandpapers to really round out and give some form and shape to the handle and to the handguard. Next, let's jump into Lightburn software and check out the graphic for this project. There's essentially going to be two different versions. The first version is the one that I used for the practice piece. It's a very basic cutout shape, and if that's what you're looking for, you can simply use settings that are compatible with your laser machine and the material, do the cutout, and you're fast on your way to completing this project. Now, if you'd like to be a little bit better than the average bear like this guy and add some more detail and design elements, I'm going to show you two really cool tools that I use to add the features that I'm making for my sword in this video. Let's check it out. Here's the basic graphic. You can certainly cut this out and glue it up and finish it as you please. The first thing that I do though when I start adding elements onto a design is I want to make a copy of everything. So I'm going to select all of that and Control C to copy and Control V to paste that copy. Now I've got a copy that I can play around with, make mistakes, and I always have an original that I can go back to without having to reload the original SVG file. Now the first thing that I want to do is add some more engraving or design elements to the sword blade itself. So the first thing I need to do is isolate that out from the rest of the handle guard and the handle. For that, I'm going to grab the box tool. I'm going to zoom in and I want to find this intersection right there. I'll move this over and I'll go back to my pointer cursor, and now I can resize this a little bit to get rid of, well, to include everything on the handle, and that's going to effectively break those parts from the main part of the sword. That box, I'm going to put that on the same layer as the sword itself, which is layer number 2 on my project. I'm going to start by selecting the sword, and then that box that I just drew, I'm going to come over here to combine, but I'm going to do this command here, and when I click on that, everything that was that box that I selected second is now deleted out. We'll see that this is still all one shape here, even though it's disconnected and I I want to get rid of these guys because I don't need them, so I'll ungroup those. Now I can come back and delete each one of those. And now with just the sword isolated, now I can add my offset. I'm going to go inward and I'm going to keep it round. And I like the way that that looks. And I can offset it once again. And maybe we'll do this distance a little bit less. I like the way that that looks, and there we go. I think on this project though, if I wanted to engrave that, I could select both of those and group them together and put it on a different layer. And now that would be the engraving. I can grab those and move them down here and get it positioned in just the right spot. That looks good. And for the next part, let's look at the handguards up near the top here. And I want to do the same things. And once again, I can highlight both of those and group them together and put it on a different layer. Take those two and move them down here so that they're tucked in there very nicely. This is what I'm going to actually use for today's project. Well, everything else here looks good. I'm going to load some material up into the machine, set the focus, get the exhaust fan turned on, and then I'll get some nice background music going and we'll watch a short video montage of the engraving and cutting of this project. This all looks great. I like the way that the engraving turned out on both the hand guards. Everything cut out very cleanly and very neatly. I'm going to take all of these parts and set them off to the side. Next step is to flip the sword over and engrave the other side. Engraving's complete on the back side, and now I'm going to give everything a nice cleaning with some LA's Totally Awesome. This stuff just melts away smoke residue from engraving and cutting. Everything's dry and I can start shaping my parts. The blade, I'm going to put a nice rounded edge all the way down to the tip. On the handles, I'm going to shape just this top part. I'm going to angle this part in and then round these edges over. I'm going to wait till these are glued on to shape the rest. The handguard, I'm going to put a nice chamfered edge all the way around. The rough sanding is all complete, and now I'm ready to start to glue the components up onto the sword. Once this is all glued up, I can go back and do the final sanding. I'm really happy with all the contours on both sides, on the handle and the guard. This all looks good. I'm going to give this a nice wipe down, and then the next step is to coat this with some sanding sealer because I'm going to be doing a paint job on this project. I've applied 2 coats of the sanding sealer with a light sanding in between, and now it's ready to add some color to this project. The sword is all complete, and let's take a look at some of the different parts and how the paint job turned out. Well, the paint is dry enough to touch, and I can show you the results that I have, and for the most part, I'm pretty happy with them. The part that I think I could have done a little bit better on, honestly, it would have been the blade of the sword. And let's check that out. I don't think it's too terribly bad. I have some nice streaking, which is what I was looking for all the way down the blade on both sides. Now to get this effect, I did have to change my game plan partway through the project. And that's because that hammer finish paint I originally was going to use really didn't work out. I did some test patterns on a sample piece, and when I sprayed that hammer finish paint, It went on far too thick, and when it started to dry over that silver acrylic paint, that hammered finish paint started to fisheye. Definitely wasn't going to work, so I had to switch over to a very similar non-hammered type paint finish and put a light coat on, and I took a cloth and wiped that down while the paint was still wet to get that nice streaking. Now, if I was to do that method over again, instead of using a cloth, I think I would use a brush with some very stiff bristles on it and drag that brush down once to get the streaking that I was looking for. Now, the rest of the project, the handguard, this turned out exactly the way that I wanted it to. I've got some nice accents from the engraving, and this turns out a little bit darker because the same paint that I used to darken up the blade, I used on here. I only applied a bit more of it and I didn't wipe it down. I'm really happy with the results on the handle. I used the red acrylic paint for the base, immediately dusted it with the black acrylic paint to darken it up a little bit. I hit it again with the red paint and then finally finished it off once again with the light dusting of that black paint to give this a nearly black but kind of a burgundy red finish, along with kind of the speckle spatter pattern of the paint. It's still drying, but I'm loving the results and the color that I was able to produce. A lot of the color tones I ended up picking complement a previous medieval theme project I made, and that's this shield project. I'll have a link to this video down in the video description. When I lay this down, we can easily see some of the color tones very closely matched between the two projects, complementing each other very nicely. Join me in the future video where I'll be making this project on a much larger scale. And once again, I won't need a huge machine like this one. I can do it on just about any size machine. And that's because the file that I created for this is made up of much smaller pieces, kind of like building blocks. Each section of wall and turret and gate, these are all separate pieces that I combine together so that I can make this all in one piece. Or if I have a smaller machine, I can make much larger pieces of these individual sections. I had a lot of fun making today's projects, and the results are certainly very rewarding. My question for all of you is, what version would you make? Would you opt for the simple, elegant wood stain version, or would you go all out for the one that I made in this video with all of the extra design elements and this really nice paint scheme? Let me know down below in the comments section. Thanks for joining me in this video, and don't forget to show this video some love by giving it a like, subscribing to the channel, or ringing that notification bell. Not only is it a great way to help the Laser channel grow, it's an awesome way to connect video content like this with other great viewers just like you. Well, until we meet again in the next video, learn, create, and share.